UNESCO's youth program has a focus on trying to be inclusive, to provide opportunities for all young people to participate in community development, their own development, and other ways that they can contribute to their society. Some time back we identified that it's very difficult for some groups of youth to participate in mainstream youth activities, and so we started an initiative in partnership with the Asia Indigenous Peoples Pact to provide opportunities for Indigenous young people.
December 2019. News comes from Wuhan, China, about an alarming novel strain of coronavirus. What we now know as COVID-19 starts spreading, and nations worldwide enforce quarantines and lockdowns. While the world enters crisis mode, a group of filmmakers across the globe grabs their cameras to capture the lives and stories around them. Sharing these stories, they realize even before COVID-19, we had equally virulent diseases dividing us. Perhaps this virus might be a test for humanity, a wake-up call for change. Filmmakers and storytellers from 22 countries unite in a shared goal to tell the story of a time for healing. This is Sanatione.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reached nooks and corners of the world, impacting in every way possible. Millions of people have already lost their lives and millions are still struggling to recover. The prevalent healthcare inequalities have amplified, which place indigenous communities at greater risk and vulnerability during this time of global pandemic. Lack of access to healthcare facilities and services, sanitation and cleanliness add up to the situation. Indigenous communities are even susceptible to stigma and discrimination. Newer strains of COVID-19 have been rampant and numerous countries are under lockdown with no immediate sight of cases depleting. Indigenous communities who are dependent on the traditional way of livelihood are hardly hit by this status quo. In response to COVID-19, the Asia Indigenous Youth Platform, the Asia Indigenous Peoples Pact and UNESCO Bangkok have supported 11 projects that are providing sustainable solutions for indigenous communities throughout South and Southeast Asia.
I would say that these projects really had a lot of terrific outcomes and successes. The projects themselves very diverse in their approaches and what they were covering, and the outcomes were really quite interesting. For example, one project in Nepal relating to the sharing of information relating to COVID-19 and indigenous languages. They were able to broadcast it on FM radio stations. They were able to produce podcasts which had thousands of viewers on YouTube.
Barsa Lekhi and Dikesh Prajapati from Nepal initiated a project called Empowering Indigenous Community of Nepal with COVID-19 Preparedness, with the motive of sharing COVID-19 related information in the indigenous languages. Out of 59 indigenous communities in Nepal, they have chosen 3 indigenous communities: Newar from Kathmandu, Magar from Palpa, and Tharu from Bardia. The COVID-19 related information was only available in English and Nepali languages. They felt there was a huge information gap among the indigenous communities who do not understand these languages, and this is the very reason why their project came into existence. Through the project, they aim to spread information in the most accessible media, which are audio podcasts and radio jingles, which are broadcasted from various radio stations in the targeted locations. They believe that they are able to reach and impact more than 10,000 people through this initiative.
We can say that the pandemic also has to be seen as an opportunity in terms of how do we respond. Now it is in this context of opportunity that AIPP and UNESCO has been looking at, and that is how to harness the energy, the capacity and strength of indigenous youths. And that is where this small grant is coming into the context as to how it is best utilized.
Coastal Students Cultural Forum is an NGO based in Kerala, India, which is working for the welfare of youth and children. Under the NGO, last year on the occasion of International Indigenous Day, Radio Kadal, a community radio, was inaugurated. Radio Kadal aims to provide a platform to document and share the indigenous identity of Mukua community. Their goals are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals by discussing the solutions to socio-cultural issues faced by the coastal communities. Radio Kadal intends to connect marine resources and knowledge for the sustainable development of the fishing community who are solely dependent on the traditional fishing practices. This radio is providing a platform for indigenous communities to voice out their opinions, share their ideas and knowledge regarding the marine lifestyle. Also, they are supporting the indigenous community students in their academics by providing the learning modules to enhance their creativity. Through this project, they are able to reach out to more than 60,000 people.
The positive thing within the indigenous people is that they have a good culture, the values that indigenous people they have. So in the community, if there is any affluence family economically, they share their crops, they share their money, they share their rice. So that's why somehow they are overcoming the pandemic situations.
Rural People Upliftment Foundation was established with the mission to bring a positive social transformation by empowering the lives of the indigenous community. They intend to uplift the indigenous community from socio-economic backwardness by providing them with basic healthcare and educational access. The COVID-19 pandemic compelled the young people to return back to Myanmar from the neighboring countries. They were struggling to find employment back home and also were unable to create opportunities on their own. 9 villages of Sika, a township along the Indo-Myanmar border, were covered through the project and they were able to train 50 young people. In order to create sustainable local economy, this project aims to generate awareness on the significance of entrepreneurship. Similarly, they identified the youth returning back to the villages and assisted them to begin a feasible micro-enterprises. They also wish to help in the economic recovery from COVID-19 induced livelihood loss. The turbulent political situations, which is military coup, created havoc in the country, and communications, media, all were cut off. The project members were having a tough time to manage the project and carry on forward. However, they were able to pull off everything, conducted a 3-day training among youth and also a review meeting.
Despite the conflict there, and despite the internet shutdown that's come as a result of the conflict, the youth leading this project were still able to conduct this online workshop on entrepreneurship and WASH, and they were incredibly worried about being able to do it, but just really at the 11th hour they were able to successfully reach out to 50 youth in this project. I would say each of these projects was really able to have the success and the impact that they strove for.
COSAFE Nepal is an NGO led by indigenous youth and is working to enhance local indigenous farmers through organic farming and knowledge sharing. The global pandemic shattered job opportunities, leaving the youth optionless but to return back home. The youngsters were clueless about the future livelihood and income generating activities. With no ideas in sight, they were gradually getting into farming and agriculture without knowing much. Little did they know that they were into chemical farming, which is harmful to environment, biodiversity, as well as to that of lives of people. COSAFE Nepal conducted a 5-day agriculture and farming training in Saptari, Nepal among 50 Tharu indigenous youth. After the training, the young indigenous farmers have garnered knowledge regarding organic and sustainable farming. After learning about the sustenance of organic farming, they have now switched their agriculture method from chemical to organic. In the near future, COSAFE Nepal intends to establish a vendor shop in farmers market with indigenous identity. Their very vendor shop will be a platform to connect consumers and organic farmers.
The resilience of these youth, the willingness, the passion to respond to this pandemic, to really do something for their communities, to not really just stand back and be victims, but to really be agents of change, is just incredibly inspiring. And being a part of this is just really one of the highlights, I think, of the work that I do.
The situation of COVID-19 seems to be unwavering, if not worse. However, during the time of adversity and uncertainty, what these proactive indigenous youth have done for the upliftment of their respective indigenous communities is awe-inspiring. These projects serve us as a model for us to get inspired, take collective actions from our ends to contribute for the greater goods in our community. So, let us join hands in any way possible and help prosper the community, because the path to big, systemic change is collective action, isn't it?